Your first question today comes from Jim Leverett. Your line is open.
Hey, I just noticed that when we were putting together the apartment building, we skipped Unit 9 by accident. Is it all right to just delete that and take it out? Will that affect any of the rest of the model?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I knew my unit count was off, and that's a good point. So I can select Unit 9 and delete it with the X over here. Wait, what happened? Oh, and then things renumbered, in fact.
Okay.
Which makes more sense. So yes, no problem correcting for that.
And if Craig had actually run the simulation with that sort of Unit 9 without any floor area, there would have been no effect on the simulation results either. So either way, it would have been fine.
All right, sounds good. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
The next question will be from Reed Miller. Your line is open.
Well, hi, folks. This is Reed Miller with my colleagues here at MIT's Material Systems Lab. Really excited about this new release. Thanks so much for it. A couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. First one, if y'all wouldn't mind clarifying what you just said about the corridor, we kind of missed that. There was something about it doesn't have its own HVAC or lighting, and there was some sort of modification made for that.
Yeah, so right now, basically, the corridor space, so you see it in the drawing tool, it won't actually get modeled as a space in Energy Plus.
Okay.
So yeah, eventually we might have it modeled as a space, in which case you'd have to specify the inputs for it. So it might have its own HVAC system, maybe not. It might have its own lighting or other internal gains. So.
Okay. Another one was, I wasn't quite sure what the porch roof was for. I think I tried just playing around putting that on top of a building before, and it created like a invisible layer in between that. So just wondering what the story on that guy is.
Sure. Thanks, Reed. It's probably more typically used for single-family detached homes, and an example would be a two-story home with a front porch, and its purpose is really for shading is the only ramifications for simulation, and just to give people a little more realistic rendering of their building. It can get a little tricky. It doesn't always work perfectly, but you can play around, you can experiment with it mostly for single family detached, although it could certainly play in duplexes, maybe townhouses.
Okay, great. Next one was, I think I saw, maybe it was in the release notes that you folks were mentioning in the future doing something with Open Studio. I don't know if this is the appropriate venue to talk about that, but I'd be curious to hear about those plans.
Yeah, so things are certainly still in the works in terms of how concrete the sort of schedule for that's going to be, but we are working starting, I guess, next year to bring a lot of the capabilities from BEopt into Open Studio, and that includes things like having Open Studio measures for the residential technologies in BEopt and things of that sort. So we have some preliminary areas that we're going to be bringing into Open Studio first that we're sort of talking with Department of Energy and others about prioritizing, and then there'll be sort of a transition period, I guess, for BEopt where we still have BEopt released. It's still out there. People can still use it. We'll still be supporting it, but at the same time, we'll be adding these capabilities to Open Studio and hoping someday to have a BEopt rebuilt on top of Open Studio. And just for those people that I guess aren't aware or have not heard of Open Studio before, Open Studio is a software platform developed or funded by Department of Energy, developed by NREL and some other national labs, and it's a layer that sits on top of the Energy Plus simulation engine, specifically to facilitate software development on top of Energy Plus. And so at the moment, BEopt runs Energy Plus itself, sort of calls it directly, and the idea is that Open Studio brings a lot of capabilities and simplifies and streamlines the development process, and so we'd be able to develop BEopt a lot quicker, a lot faster when it sits on top of OpenStudio instead. So that's the idea there.
And I might just follow on that Eric showed on his final PowerPoint slide the fact that with this release of BEopt, we are solely supporting Energy Plus and no longer supporting Joe 2. Over the years, we've carried both along. The main advantage of Joe 2 is that it runs faster than Energy Plus, but over time, there were more and more capabilities that were only feasible in Energy Plus and not in Joe 2. And there's sort of a burden in terms of development to maintain both simulation engines. So as a user, if you want, for whatever reason, quick and dirty simulations with Energy Plus, you can change to a long time step, say 1 time step per hour. Not really recommended for accurate simulations, but it would give you kind of the equivalent of the old, well, not necessarily equivalent results, but an alternative for doing a very quick quicker simulation in Energy Plus. Any more questions?
Last one for me for now. I guess I had thought we were going to be able to do 6 stories living area, but then I heard when you're speaking that it's 5 stories plus an attic. Is there a chance on the release that it might be able to go up to higher stories?
I would say there's a chance. We'll look into that. It's hard to, these kind of things, making a decision about exactly where the cutoff is, and sure. There's some kind of structural or code things. Maybe at 3 stories, we thought we would go to 5 stories because we see quite a bit of that happening with current development. But we can certainly take under consideration going to more stories.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.